Iowa Blues Showcase, episode number 74. Excuse me while I move that mic. Because we do it live, ladies and gentlemen, everything live. Tonight's episode is an interview by Cheryl Pryor of her husband, the late great Jimmy Pryor. This is really cool. It's a cassette tape that they did talking mostly about Detroit and his days in Detroit. And it is really a cool tape. It's great to hear Jimmy. He's been gone for a while, and you know, I think I said this before, but he died I believe in the fall, and I can remember I had a gig with Big Daddy and Jeff Baker, and my heart just wasn't in it. And I know Jimmy would have wanted me to play because that's what he was. That's what he was like. But, man, I just couldn't. And for a good year, I just didn't play. Because it just, I don't know. It was just Jimmy dying. It was like a hole in your heart. And I know for a fact that's not what he would have wanted. But I couldn't help it. I mean, he was important in my life. He was, he was 90 years old. So, we can't live forever. But darn it, if there was one guy I thought that could, it was Jimmy. He was rarely sick. Smoked like a chimney, drank like a fish, and yet nothing wrong with him. I don't even think he even had to take any medicine till like toward the end of his life. He just, I don't know, just lived the perfect life in many ways, especially the last few years. But anyway, this interview he did would have been in 2003. And I think I'm pretty sure it was before I left for Storm Lake, because that would have been later in the year. And I think, well, in fact, I know the reason I got this tape was I was working on my master's thesis, and then also, and this might have came a little later because that might have been when I was working on the article for Living Blues about Jimmy. And so maybe that's how I ended up with the tape. But anyway, we're going to hear the first half hour of it, and then next week we'll listen to the next half hour. But again, mostly about Detroit. It's mostly about so we're going to hear a little bit about when he worked in the coal mines as a kid, which would have been probably in the early 30s-ish, I'm thinking, if I did my math right, about 32. So, and I'm kind of, well, people still needed coal even though it was the Great Depression. So in many ways, he's probably isolated from that. But he talks a little bit about it, but not too much. Mostly what he talks about are the years from 51 to 59. From what I remember from talking to Jimmy and from the research that I did in after the war, he was in World War II. He drove truck for the Red Ball Express, which was kind of a dangerous job. They basically were the supply unit for the Allies. And when he came back, and he would have been fairly old when he went in. He would have been in his late 20s when he went in. So when he came back from the war, he eventually headed to Detroit. And it's in Detroit that he really started his music career. And he played with a lot of the cats in Detroit, and a lot of those guys knew him. And he also went on the road about that time. He got involved with Flick Records, which there's dispute on one end about this. On our end, I've talked to Cheryl about this too. That I mean, Cheryl has documentation that Jimmy was. There are people that are the experts that go through all the records, and they say there's no record that Jimmy Pryor ever did for Flick. He never worked for Flick, and so we have documents apparently somewhere. Cheryl does, and so yeah, he did. Just they obviously didn't release it. When you listen to the tape, it sounds like Flick had him caught up in a contract that he couldn't leave, and so that's probably part of the reason why I doubt that they ever released any of his stuff, because it sounds like they were just demos that he was doing for Flick. But supposedly they're somewhere, so hopefully we can find them and put them on the podcast. Anyway, by 1960, he ended up in Des Moines, Iowa, because we were one of the few places that still was 24 hours, 7 days a week. So that gave him a lot of work as a musician. I mean, yeah, there were other places that you could play that. I'm sure Chicago and New York were still that way, but especially in the Midwest, unless you were Chicago or New York, most places start closing up, about 2:00. So Des Moines was still 24-hour in 1960 and stayed that way for at least a few more years. I think it was 64, 65, Liquor by the Drink passed, which put it into the key clubs. But that attracted Jimmy, that he could play here. He was supposed to only play here 2 weeks, and then he ended up staying here for 45 years. So, pretty good run. Anyway, so we're just going to go ahead and listen to this interview with, and it's good to hear his voice again. And next week we'll hit the second part of that show, and hopefully we can add some music to this down the road, because from this interview it sounds like there's a lot of open reel tapes that Jimmy recorded, and we've played one that was Jimmy Live at the Pines from '66, which is the oldest show we've ever put on the podcast. So there are apparently others going back into the 50s, so hopefully we can find some of those and get them cleaned up and get them on the podcast for you. So, all right, I'll come back at the end of this, so I'll kind of discuss some stuff coming up, so don't go nowhere. This is Mr. Pryor and his wife Cheryl talking about the good old days on the Iowa Blues Showcase.
Okay, here we are. This is Cheryl and Jimmy Pryor on April the 6th, 2003. We're sitting at home looking at a snowstorm moving through here. We are going to be talking about Jimmy's music career in various stages, so we're going to be compiling a list of different questions throughout his music history. So we're going to start with the Detroit scene, and I'm asking Jimmy a question of what was the main club that you played in Detroit, and what was your favorite club to go to when you were off the scene, when you weren't playing, to go and listen to music?
Well, your first question?
What was the main club you played in, when you were in Detroit?
The 20 Grand was where I was performing at.
Okay.
And I told you the other day the name of the other club that I had the band in.
And what was that name?
I don't remember. I told you.
I don't either.
Well, see that? So we have to get that stuff together.
Yeah.
and that was my show bar on 8 Mile Road in Detroit, Michigan. That's where I had the band and where I performed by myself, and the band was already there, was at the 20 Grand.
At the 20 Grand. Oh. And that was kind of on the main drag there? And that was kind of on the main drag of, in the area of Detroit where there were a lot of clubs, and so you performed at that particular one. So there were bands already in-house, and you'd come and join them, and you played guitar. And did you play lead guitar most of the time, or rhythm?
Just
Chording. Okay.
Anything I sing, I made the chords.
So would they call you a pickup man then, because you were somebody that came to set in, or were you on the show bill?
No. At this point, I was performing on the show bill.
On the show bill, okay.
Yeah, see, now appearing Jimmy Pryor.
Okay. Very good.
And yeah.
And what was your favorite club to go to and listen to music when you weren't playing? Was there a particular club that you used to like to hang out at?
Yeah, the Flame Show Bar is where I used to hang out at.
The Flame
And
Show?
the Alvita Club. I used to hang out there when I'm not doing nothing. Those are my favorite spots.
Oh. What kind of what kind of music did they have in those clubs? Jazz?
Variety of music.
Variety?
Yeah, they'd have bands, but the bands was playing variety.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I like variety, that's why.
Yeah. That's good.
That's good.
That's obvious in your music, and getting the privilege of listening to these tapes that you have, that you've had from the 50s and 60s and on from there, that you did always like a variety of music, and I think it's very evident in your style that you've liked rhythm and blues, gospel. I particularly enjoy hearing you sing country. And so you're right. You've always had a good appreciation of well-rounded music. So, who was really on the scene back then in Detroit, that when you were playing at these clubs and you would play for other performers, who were the main folks on the scene then? Like, I know, for instance, you played backup for John Lee Hooker. You played with John Lee because you and some other cat you were talking about used to laugh about John Lee playing those simple 2 chords or whatever. And you guys were kind of laughing with him, but, playing with him and stuff.
In that era, when we was playing with John Lee Hooker, we had a boy named Thurman, Bob Thurman, playing piano, a boy named Sleepy on the drums, and I was playing my guitar, and we didn't have to make but 2 chords, so we laughed all the time, and it didn't matter because he had a packed house of people. Yeah, everybody was having a ball, so that's the way the story went.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like playing with John Lee?
Oh yeah, I didn't care.
Well,
The price was right.
What kind of a cat was John Lee? What was
He
he
was
like?
very good,
Was he a
jolly fellow.
very nice man?
Yeah,
and-
Johnny Lee Hooker was a nice guy. Yeah, he was nice in years. That was his young days.
And how often did you play with John Lee?
I played with John Lee, about twice a month anyhow. Yeah, when I wasn't doing nothing, I'd go to his club and sit in with the band.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was the name of his club? You don't remember? Or
No,
band?
no.
But you'd go to his club and play with him.
Yeah,
And he kind of developed his own style.
right.
And
But he had a harmonica player called Sonny Boy Williams with us playing also. And it was very good. Mm-hmm.
and Sonny Boy's been famous throughout history.
Sonny Boy Williams was the first I know of the good cats harmonica. One of the old cats. Yeah. He put out a tune called 9 Below Zero.
Really?
That's when I had my fall, 9 Below Zero, in 98. let's check on this thing, see if it's working.
Well, you do it.
Okay, we continuing on with our little party.
And a party it is. We're having the great pleasure of listening to some of Jimmy's old vintage reel-to-reel tapes of him playing in Detroit and various establishments, as well as certainly tapes of him playing here in Des Moines and several clubs here. And we'll be talking throughout this interview in greater detail about that. It's really fascinating for me to hear his style of play and his lead guitar work. And he was really good on lead guitar. I know he played a lot of rhythm guitar as well, but he certainly, when he was in his own band, did a good job. And so it's really fun to listen to these tapes. So John Lee Hooker was on the scene, and I know that you did play with Della Reese. You sang with Della Reese, or she was doing some backup work.
Flame Show Bar.
At the Flame Show Bar?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I got you. At the Flame Show
At
Bar?
the Flame Show Bar.
And Della Reese did backup singing, or?
Della Reese was on the show, and I was on the show.
Okay. And what kind of a person was she to work with?
Very good.
Nice person?
Fine lady.
Fine lady?
Yeah.
That's good. So that's interesting that she's gone on in the music and industry, and also in television.
And in the movies now.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
now she's on Touched by an Angel, that movie.
Yeah. Touched by Angel.
Yeah. So she seemed like a very well put together person, and that she enjoyed what she was doing also.
Right next speaker. It's right in front of me. That's it.
Who else was on the scene in Detroit? I know B.B. King was there, and he was, at one point you told me he would play in one club, and you were playing in another club. And when he'd get off his gig, he'd come down where y'all were playing and sit in with you guys and jam, and he was learning some guitar licks back then. And so can you talk a little bit more about that when he was around on the scene?
Yeah, B.B. King was booked for the Prince Hall in Detroit, Michigan. And a bunch of us guitar players got together, and we went up to see him at the Prince Hall. And when he wasn't working, we'd go down to a barbecue place on Gratiot. And all us guitar players would meet there and talk together and go to see what each other play, you know.
That's nice.
And that was good. B.B. was a young fellow then. Yeah.
And he kind of developed his own style.
Yeah, he's got his own style.
Uh-huh.
A lot of guys try to imitate him, but he's B.B.
He did his own thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Those were good days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it sounds like you guys kind of looked out for each other.
Oh,
as
yeah.
musicians.
Yeah.
That you look out for each other and probably help each other get gigs and that kind of a thing.
Guitar players was on their own scene, you know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we was on our own scene.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So
Guitar players stuck together.
that's good.
Yeah.
Seems like that's still what happens today too on the scene, that horn players stick together.
Yep.
And guitar
Mhm.
people and
Yep.
drummers, and that's a good thing. Help each other out.
Yeah. Yep, that was it.
Who else was on the scene up in Detroit then?
Oh, well, up on the main drag of Detroit, Michigan, they have big bands. Count Basie. Just couldn't name the bands. Big bands in the early days.
Duke Ellington?
They did. Duke Ellington and all of them. You could go see them for about $3 or $4. You could see any band you want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we all there, always going to them places, you know.
Yeah.
When the big band comes to town, we want to see. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you played a little bit with Count Basie.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
in that band, and also with Duke Ellington. Is that right?
No, not with Duke.
Okay. You never did play with Duke.
No.
But you
But I was around when he was playing.
when they were playing.
Yeah.
But you did play with Count.
Yeah. Duke had a big band. Count Basie had a big band. Cab Calloway had a big band. All of them had big bands.
Uh-huh.
But I got a chance to appear with Cab Calloway.
You did. You played with Cab Calloway?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
And what kind of a style did he have? Was he a
Hidey,
pianist?
hidey, ho.
Hidey, hidey, ho, huh?
Story about Minnie the Butcher. Yeah.
Was he a piano man or a guitar man, Cab Calloway?
Just a singer.
Oh, he was a vocalist?
He never sang, you know.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I was a singer. That's the way the story went, you know. Yeah.
Well, and you also went to a lot of jam sessions, you know, so I imagine there's probably people that went on and made big names for themselves. What about the Four Tops? Didn't you used to go to jam sessions with the Four Tops? Turn it.
You just asked me about Four Tops.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about the Four Tops, and were they playing with you in Detroit, or were they playing at a club that you used to play in, the Four Tops?
Yeah. I met all the Four Tops. I met the whole bunch, you know. One of my bass players, I was at his home in there. And the Four Tops lived where he lived. And they would be in the kitchen rehearsing.
What was the bass player's name?
Oh, I forget his name now. I can't think of his name now.
Mm-hmm.
But I played with his band a little bit. And I went by to pick him up. And the Four Tops was in the kitchen. Yeah. And later on, Four Tops come to my bar, the Rage Show Bar.
The Rage Show Bar, uh-huh.
Yeah, that's on the 8 Mile Road.
Uh-huh.
And they were too young to be on stage. And my boss man said, let them sing. So I put them up there. Four Tops, Temptations, all those Motown people that were just growing up.
Okay.
Yeah, I met them all.
Uh-huh. Now, when you say they were too young to be on stage, was it they too young to be in the club, or did you have to be a certain age
They wasn't 21.
to be a performer,
You have to be 21 to get in the
to
clubs.
get into the club? Oh, I see.
Yeah, all of them was underage.
But they got snuck in anyway, and
Well,
your boss man let them in.
They was in there, but they must have got by the bounce of some kind of way, but they were in there.
Yeah.
So, you know, we probably had false IDs or something.
Yeah.
A lot that was going on during those days.
So you met all the Four Tops, you met the Temptations,
Yeah.
and a lot
Yeah.
of other Motown
Yeah, met all
folks that were
those guys.
coming up. How about the Ink Spots? Did you know anybody that was in the
No.
Ink Spots? No.
Ink Spots, they were traveling when I was traveling.
When you were traveling.
So I was doing my thing all over the East Coast, and they were doing their thing wherever they were. But I never did run into them. I thought a lot of the Ink Spots. I like the music.
Yeah. What about the Neville Brothers or anybody like that?
I didn't know about them.
We're familiar with that.
No.
I imagine you guys used to have a lot of fun when you went to jam sessions after hours.
Yeah.
And I know that they used to call you, in Detroit, they used to call you the Batman. Is that right?
They called me the Batman before I went to West Virginia when I was a kid.
When you were a kid. And tell us how you got that name.
Well, we'd catch different kind of animals and go through the camp with them on a stick or something.
Oh.
And I wanted to carry the thing, they wouldn't let you have it.
Uh-oh.
So they called me Bat. So, and when I grew up in Vietnam, they called me Batman. So I kept that name for a long time.
For a long time.
That was my name in West Virginia.
Batman.
Bat. They called me
Called
Bat.
you Bat.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But that's how I got it. Every time kids or something find something, a turtle or whatever, you know,
A turtle or...
they called this bat and I wanted it. They wouldn't let me have it.
Oh, you wanted that bat. And we wanted to
Yeah.
make it your friend, huh?
Yeah, that's how they called me Bat. That's how I got that name.
That's funny.
Yeah, and I used it in show business. Batman.
Batman.
I went to Detroit, they called me Batman. I had the Batman cape and everything.
Oh, you did, huh?
Oh, yeah.
I imagine.
Yeah.
Now, listening to some of your tapes, there are some of the bands that you played with. There were maybe 8 pieces in some of those bands, 6, 7, 8 pieces. When you had your own band in Detroit, or you were playing with different folks, how big was the band generally?
At least 6 pieces.
At least 6.
Because I had everything, trumpet, saxophone, piano, and all that. Yeah.
And you would do the vocals.
I'm
as-
the boss.
You were the boss. You were okay.
I was the vocalist.
Okay.
And I had to do all the singing and
Play
all the
lead
emceeing
guitar.
and everything. Play the guitar if I wanted to, because I had piano. Piano and guitar is the same thing, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
So you always did a lot of emceeing in your and that's one thing that I certainly appreciate listening to your tapes, and I think other people do, is that you always interacted with the audience.
Right.
And you, ladies and gentlemen, you were always very respectful of the
Yeah.
audience, and you got their attention, and people
Keep the audience right in your fingers.
involved.
Yeah.
And they also, in turn, they always applauded you, and it showed you that they appreciated your music.
Right.
And so that's one of the things I think that a lot of today performers miss, is that interaction with the audience.
Yeah.
What would you think that? Do you think that's true today? That there are a lot of people that get up just to perform and don't actually interact that well with the audience?
They're not paying the audience no attention. Just doing their thing, you know. Whether the audience paying any attention.
Now,
If the audience didn't pay me no attention, I wouldn't be doing nothing.
okay. Well, one of the things too that you told me before was that, and I'm not sure who encouraged you exactly. Maybe you can talk about it. That when you first started in show business, that somebody encouraged you to always be dressed. I don't know if it was an agent or if it was just somebody that had influenced you, or someone you used to work with had told you that when you hit the stage, you need to always be dressed.
Well, that all started in my early days when I was in those coal mining camps. Everything was bought through company stores, and I always had suits. I had suits made, and every time the tailor would come through, I'd have a new suit made.
Tailor-made suits.
So I had suits for every day of the week.
Wow.
Yeah. Overcoats, they make all the things for you, you know.
Uh-huh.
So I owed my soul to the company store.
Owed your soul to the
That was the
company
early
store.
days. That was the early days. Yeah.
Yeah.
I worked in coal mines back in those days.
Yeah,
When
you
I
sure
was
did.
16, 17, all that age, you know, young age.
So you kind of established your own style of dress.
Yeah,
then.
I was dressed all the time. Yeah.
You could get what you needed,
Pretty shoes.
what you wanted.
Yeah, pretty shoes and pretty suits. Yeah, I just got everything I wanted.
Uh-huh.
I owed my soul to the company store.
Yeah.
They'd give you anything you want.
Yeah. And that just carried throughout your whole lifetime.
Yeah, but I was loading that coal 16 ton or whatever it was. Yeah, getting that coal.
You were paid your dues for those nice suits too, didn't
Yeah.
you? Yeah.
To buy your car through the company, anything you wanted. Yeah, cars you didn't have to have no insurance or nothing. Just buy automobiles yours.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then when you became an entertainer, which you probably were doing some entertaining anyway with music,
Yeah.
obviously from when you were real young.
Yeah.
Then when you got to travel and go on the road and get with other bands and that kind of thing, when you're first starting out, and always being dressed and interacting with the audience and interacting with, was it intimidating for you to get on stage when you first started out, or did it just seem natural to you?
I never was stage fright.
Never had stage fright. And
I could get up in it.
it didn't bother you?
Didn't bother me.
Never
at all.
got bad nerves before you
No.
went on stage, or never stumbled and didn't have anything to say?
If I stumbled, I had to cover it up with the Bing Crosby boo 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 and go right on to the song.
Well, that's a good way to handle it. That's a good way to handle
Yeah.
it. And that's true of you today. You continue to always be well dressed.
Yeah.
You enjoy wearing different outfits
Yeah.
and being dressed to the nines. Also, one of the things that's part of your character that I understand too is that you not only like to be dressed, but sometimes you like to wear things that are a little offbeat that other people couldn't get away with. Sometimes the kind of hat you might wear,
Yeah.
or your flashing jewelry. I know your good friend Frank Martinez calls you the king of electric jewelry.
Yeah.
That people are always giving you anything that flashes that you can put on your coat jacket and
Right.
flash when you're on the stage. It's just part of your personality when you're performing.
That was it.
And people look forward to that, to see what you're going to have on when you hit the stage. And people comment about that frequently.
Oh yeah.
Now I want to talk a little bit more about, you worked for Flick Records in Detroit. You
Yeah.
cut a couple numbers from them, or one original tune with Flick Records, or how did that go?
Well, I made 3 or 4 discs, but they just played them on the radio, and other record companies, they hear me doing that and try to get me to perform with them, but this record company had me tied up. I couldn't do nothing for nobody. And after I found out what they was doing to me, I wasn't getting no money. I just quit doing anything. There wasn't nothing they could do about it.
Yeah.
If I didn't do nothing. So I just tied up. That's the reason I never did get nowhere. The record company tied me up.
Okay.
There wasn't no money in making records then.
Right. Do you still have a copy of your original song?
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
What was the name of that song? Do you remember? That you had on that you have on record.
Oh, one was "Come to Me, Baby," and "Walking All Night Long," and there were 4 tunes there.
3 or 4 numbers. Yeah.
Plus, imitating Nat King Cole and Fat Domino and different things like that. And I didn't like that. I refuse to do anything with my shoes. So I finally left there.
It sounds to me like through history that, particularly in the black community, that musicians, that record companies really didn't do very many people justice back then.
Back then it wasn't.
They took advantage of
Yeah.
a lot of folks.
Yeah.
But people like Nat King Cole, perhaps he had an agent or somebody
Yeah.
mediating in between to negotiate contracts or whatever.
See, when I was there, Motown wasn't even started good. They wasn't doing nothing. Our bands played there for a little money, got a little money, not much. Yeah. Used to be a studio band, Motown. Wasn't nothing to it back then. But they got big later on. But I was gone,
Yeah.
Later years.
Mhm.
I had to go for myself.
Right. I suppose it was a struggle for people to get an agent or to get some recognition back then anyway. And so it was kind of a struggle throughout until the kind of Motown got better established
Yeah,
and other
yeah.
things, and then people started getting paid for a little bit of their dues, what they were owed.
Yeah.
Do you remember some of the guys that played with Cab Calloway back then?
I didn't know none of them.
No?
That's not necessary. I probably knew them then, but now I don't.
Yeah. That's okay.
Yeah.
Who were the big names that came out of the clubs besides B.B. King? That
What?
big name people that you ended up playing, that you played with in Detroit. And we talked a little earlier about some people that went on into television and became successful. Can you think of other people that made it big later on?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
Because at that time in my area, all the clubs had their house bands. And I was just a single entertainer.
Okay.
That's like the other guys, single entertainers, but the band was already there.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, see if you book down in Washington at Fleam, band's already there.
Yeah, I see.
See?
She just
Yeah.
come in and they play behind her.
Yeah.
Kind of like studio musicians, but
Yeah,
they're called
that's
house
right.
bands.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Mhm. That tape should be all run out now. I think. Still going, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I hope it's getting us.
It is. I think it should be. The light isn't coming on very much, but so did you ever really want to write your own material, or did you just kind of experiment?
Never did.
Never had any desire to
Had no music ability. I didn't have that.
the ability to compose and arrange music?
I know nothing about that stuff.
So
I'm
you-
just a handmade musician.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you do have some original songs on your reels that were things that you did, but they were just your own style and your own compilation,
Right.
not necessarily arranged and that kind of thing. It was
Yeah.
all done by ear, played by ear, and then the guys could just follow you in the
Yeah.
band.
But those things are usually made from some song you already know, and you just change the words and have the same lyrics.
Okay.
Or
Same
you
melody,
just change
yeah.
it, you got the same melody, but just with new words,
I see.
and that's a new song. I did that quite a bit. Yeah. So life went on.
Also, I know that you did some traveling and traveled throughout the United States. And when were those years? What were the dates approximately when you did your road traveling?
1951 on through 59.
51 through 59.
Yeah, I was just traveling there all over Canada, the East Coast, different states on the East Coast, different states in Canada, you know, just traveling man.
Now,
I had my own band then.
you had your own band,
Yeah.
and so did you have to do the booking of the gigs, or did you just go into a state
I had a booking agent.
at a booking agent?
Yeah.
Okay.
Booking agent said, got a job for you.
Uh-huh.
How many pieces you want? Oh, about 5. Okay, I'd go to the musician unit, tell them I want 5 men. Tell them what I want. They'd come to me. And we'd hit the road.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when you came to Des Moines, was it hard for you to get into the musicians union here?
I didn't have no problem at all.
No problem at all.
Mm.
That's good.
Yeah. I was doing my single act then.
All right.
Okay.
There. That was nice. Nice interview there. Listen to Jimmy and Cheryl. And yeah, it's kind of cool. Listen to his story. I haven't heard that tape for, let's see, would have been, 2003, so about 14 years ago. Pretty cool. All right, so the showcase, I'm still kind of trying to get things set up so we can record some newer stuff, and but it hopefully in the next couple weeks we'll have some cooler stuff. But not that tonight's wasn't cool, because tonight obviously was very cool. But yeah, we're trying to get some do some different things, and we'll see what happens. As always, life gets very busy, and trying to get everything organized and get things to where I want them so I can be able to do some more stuff has been very complicated. And it always is complicated, darn it. So, yeah, hopefully we'll be able to do that. I already talked to Jono, and Jono's up for it. So, I mean, it'll be me and Jono and a guest is what we're going to try to do. And we'll see how that goes. Maybe do something maybe weekly. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, things have been kind of fascinating around here with the blues. It's feast or famine around here. So, yeah, I've noticed a lot of guys have gotten a lot of work here recently, and that's kind of cool. So hopefully that'll keep going. And it seems like Sundays at the Hall are doing really good, and of course Tuesdays at Carl. So anytime you got a vibrant jam going, things are good. You don't want too many, because then it's, you're getting taken advantage of. But I think two a week is a pretty good thing. I mean, unless you're a really big town, like Kansas City or Chicago, I'm sure they have a jam every night. But a town our size, two's about it. Don't want to do anything more than that. So, but both of them are doing pretty good, and we had Bowl Full of Blues earlier in the fall, so things are looking up. Central Blues side are doing their thing, so hopefully that will turn into more gigs. Of course, you can still catch blues at Greenwood, occasionally at the Yacht Club, so things are looking up here in town. So if you're around Des Moines, check out those spots, and you might see some pretty good blues. So come on by, because Des Moines is a very popular place for da blues. At least it used to be, and it, like I said, it ebbs and flows, and hopefully we're on the upward swing again. Well, hope you had a good week. It sort of is fall again, but then it was summer again. It's really weird, but it is October in Iowa. I was kind of hoping that I wouldn't have to run the air, but darn it, if I didn't have to run the air a couple days ago, it got too hot. But hopefully fall will kick in. And, hey, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Yeah. So, yeah, like I said, hope you had a good week. Hope you've had some great weather, and hopefully if you're feeling down, listen to the blues, because it'll lift you up, make you feel better. Chase those blues away with the blues. That's what it's all about. So you guys have another great week, and we'll see you next week on the Iowa Blues Showcase.